The following was filmed before a live studio audience. Welcome, everyone. I found this series that Dr. Bob did to be quite hilarious and very revealing. I love watching flat earthers, especially young guns raised on social media who think they can outthink older gunslingers. It really never goes or ends well except in the minds of the young guns. Their arrogance, willful ignorance, and lack of knowledge on how things work is very transparent. And of course, do these young gun flat earthers really believe in the flat earth, or is it just a thing to do right now because it's a thing on social media? Presenting Dr. Bob and an Austin Whitsitt clone, Kaleb.
I just started here on TikTok a little while ago. So,
got any evidence for the earth being spherical?
Of course. I've measured it personally.
How do you measure it? How do you measure the sphericity of the earth? How do we do that?
Well, let's see. Water's level, right?
Yep.
Great.
Water's
so
level.
if I have...
Judging by the knowingly smug look Kaleb had on his face, we all know he was thinking of only one definition of level. I mean, why would that word have any other meaning other than the one that suits his narrative?
If I have something a certain distance above water on one side of a lake and the same distance above water on the other side of the lake, they both line up on an auto level, wouldn't they?
What?
Anyone else get the impression that Kaleb was only half, if that, listening?
Now, right off the bat, Kaleb tries to challenge me to provide evidence of Earth curvature, which I, of course, have done. And then he asked me how I did it. So I gave him a very simple measurement of Earth curvature. In this case, if you have a level lake and you have two objects on either side of that lake, one is a telescope that is set up to a horizontal at that point, and the other is a target at the exact same height as the telescope, the horizontal caused by the first object would intersect the second object on the other side of the lake. However, on a curved surface, if you set up a horizontal at the side of the telescope and set up a target on the opposite side of the lake at exactly the same height above lake level, that object will actually be below the horizontal line, and you would be able to measure the drop in curvature. See where I'm going with this? And as a result, what he's doing is asking me to repeat myself, to give him a moment to think.
What?
They would both be at the same horizontal if they were at the same height above lake level, wouldn't they be?
Is there an atmosphere, Bob?
Yeah.
What does that atmosphere do?
More of his knowingly smug look again, thinking he has a gotcha question for Bob.
Well, it would refract at a quarter of an inch up, but Earth curve would be 2 inches.
What are you talking about, a quarter of an inch? Where do you get a quarter of an inch, Bob?
Standard refraction.
Over how many miles?
Half a mile.
Half a mile.
Yep.
Okay. So do you want to give us like a thought experiment of where are we observing? The observer's at X. They're observing to Y. What's the difference? What's the distance between X and Y?
Half a mile.
Half a mile.
Yep.
You think you can deduce curvature over half a mile, Bob? Are you genuinely?
Deduce or actually measure?
Deduce or measure.
Yes, I can measure it, and I have measured
What
it.
does deduce mean, Bob? If you want to get semantical, we can do etymological fallacies.
Okay, so I've explained the experiment, and now rather than digest that explanation and go with it from there, he tries to play some word games with me. He may or may not have used the word deduce deliberately to try and get a correction out of me. Well, I did correct him. I said I didn't deduce it, I measured it. There's a difference between those two words. Then he simply tried to confabulate the words as if somehow I was wrong. We're not going to do those. I'm discussing measurements.
My live, you're going to answer the question, Bob. What does deduce mean?
That means come to a logical conclusion based on evidence.
Could I use deduce or measure when talking in that sentence, in that format?
No.
I could use both, right?
Measure is actually collecting data. Deducing is what you do with the data.
Bob is indeed right. Kaleb did confabulate the words deduce and measure. Deduce means arrive at a fact or a conclusion by reasoning, draw as a logical conclusion. Measure means to ascertain the size, amount, or degree of something by using an instrument or device marked in standard units or by comparing it with an object of known size. Those two words clearly do not mean the same thing. But in his condescending arrogance, Kaleb doesn't care.
Oh my gosh.
It is
Holy shit.
connecting the dots on the data. Now, this is a very typical tactic you'll see in flat earth debates. They'll use a word and hope that you don't know the meaning of it, and then try and grill you on the meaning of the word. And they will continue to do this until they find a word that you don't know. Now, the purpose of this is to make you look stupid in front of their audiences. However, when you do actually know the meaning of the words, because you're a subject matter expert like I am, and know their script better than they do, it doesn't really work, and it actually blows up in their face. This is why Kaleb is starting to get very frustrated right now. I actually measured the drop over half a mile, and it's 2 inches.
You measured, whoa. You measured the drop. Did you take in the fact that we see in curved visual space? What's the difference between hyperbolic geometry? Hold on, Bob. What's the difference between hyperbolic geometry and Euclidean geometry?
Now, if you pass the test on the first word they use, they'll simply try and do it again. Now, in this case, I passed the difference between deduction and measurement. Now he's trying to question my knowledge about our vision and claiming that we see in hyperbolic geometry. We'll go ahead and touch on that in the next episode. Now, as you may recall from our first episode, he was grilling me on how I measured the earth curve in my backyard. We played some word games. That kind of stumped him because I actually knew the answers to them. And now he's entering into his next word game. Measure is actually collecting data. Deducing is what you do with the data.
Oh my gosh.
It is connecting the dots on the data.
Okay, so
I actually measured the drop over half a mile, and it's 2 inches.
You measured, whoa. You measured the drop. Did you take in the fact that we see in curved visual space? What's the difference between hyperbolic geometry? Hold on, Bob. What's the difference between hyperbolic geometry and Euclidean geometry?
Well, Euclidean geometry, of course, is plane geometry. Hyperbolic and spherical geometry deal with curved surfaces. Now, just to clear a few things up, an example of Euclidean geometry is the surface of this lens cap. It's flat. Spherical geometry is the back of the bowl. It's curved. Hyperbolic geometry is the inside of the bowl. We see in hyperbolic geometry, really.
Kaleb is a believer in our eyes are spherical, which is why we see curve. He even said so in one of his debates. Honestly, I don't remember which one, and I really don't want to take the time to look. Now he has shifted that to we see in hyperbolic geometry.
Okay. Then he tried to, again, play the definition game with me. This is, again, a classic flat earth technique. What is the definition of hyperbolic geometry? Well, I told him. And even though my answer, of course, was correct, he has to somehow say that it's wrong. Let's see how he does that.
How'd you take that into account, Bob? You can take a second, breathe. I can tell you're nervous. Take a second, breathe, dude. Okay,
I'm not nervous at all.
Note here the projection by Kaleb, who is actually learning proper knowledge of a subject by someone who knows that subject, and has to quickly think of something to say to counter him by telling Bob, who is as calm as can be, to, you could take a second, breathe. I can tell you are nervous. Take a second. Breathe, dude, okay? Catch your breath. All it is a deflection tactic that he employs often.
So how do you think we see in spherical, in hyperbolic geometry?
How did you account for do we see in Euclidean or hyperbolic geometry, Bob?
Well, in this case, we're seeing in Euclidean because we're looking at straight lines.
Whoa. What are you using to see in Euclidean geometry?
You're trying to say that because my eyes are spherical, that somehow makes my vision spherical? Yeah, one thing I don't think Kaleb understands is the difference between hyperbolic, spherical, and Euclidean geometry is not triangles, squares, and circles and lines. It's the surface that those are put upon. This is pretty typical of somebody trying to punch above their own intellect. You see, most flat earthers are used to just baffling people with word salad, such as saying Euclidean hyperbolic geometry, terms whose meaning they are clueless about, in the hope that their opponent is also equally as clueless, because that tries to confuse them and put them off their game. When you have an opponent that actually does know what these things are, it blows their mind and it just kind of causes them to die a little bit inside. Then what they generally do is double down. Let's see.
Bob, focus. What did you use to view in Euclidean geometry? What did you use?
I used an auto level.
An auto level, a total station?
An auto level. Do you
What's
know
an
the
auto
difference
level,
between
Bob?
an auto level and a
What's
total
an auto
station?
level? No, I don't. What's an auto level?
An auto level sets up a horizontal at a given point. Since I'm looking at a cross section through a curved surface, this is all Euclidean geometry. Now, the other thing that you'll notice is that he started to project on me. He tried to tell me that I was nervous, that I needed to take a deep breath and calm down. I was as calm then as I am right now. Who is the one getting excited here? Who is the one that maybe needs to take a deep breath and collect his thoughts? It's not me. Do you know the difference between an auto level and a total station?
No, I don't. What's an auto level?
An auto level sets up a horizontal at a given point. So it sets up a line. It sets up a line of sight that is perpendicular to the vertical at any given point where the station's set up.
All right, auto station, telescope. Auto levels have telescope mounted. So did you have to look through the telescope on the auto level?
Yep.
Do your eyes see in Euclidean or hyperbolic geometry, Bob?
Dear, oh dear, Caleb is so precious. He is really trying hard here.
Eyesight means. Let's see.
You're gonna have to walk that back. What is this, Bob?
Before you answer, Bob, let me field this one. That is an artist 2D drawing of perspective. Okay, I'm done. Take it away, Bob.
Does this look like Euclidean geometry or hyperbolic geometry?
Euclidean.
You think these lines are straight? Even though these lines are perfectly straight on this walkway, they're coming to a point, and you think that's Euclidean.
That's called perspective. It doesn't have to do with hyperbolic geometry.
Very simple, Bob. We're trying to explain to you that we see in hyperbolic geometry.
That's not hyperbolic geometry.
I can send you plenty of papers talking about how we see in hyperbolic geometry, binocular space.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. He thinks simple perspective is hyperbolic geometry. And more importantly, then he offers to send me quote-unquote papers. Flat earthers and science deniers in general, when they try to cite papers, generally what they'll do is they'll do a word search for a particular phrase that they're trying to promote. They'll find a paper that has that phrase in it, and then they'll go to the sentence that has the phrase. They won't read the paper, because even though the sentence in their mind supports their position, the paper itself does not. Hyperbolic geometry.
Is this Euclidean? Just so I can actually, let me.
Where'd you go?
Let's let this screen record start. Just give it 1 second. Bob, looks like Euclidean geometry or hyperbolic geometry?
That's Euclidean geometry.
Yo, perfect. Perfect clip, Bob. Thank you for that.
Now, for those of you that are getting a little confused without a scorecard, this is another technique that he's doing. Now, he's trying to imply that I'm wrong, and he's trying to intimidate me by doing a screen recording of me giving the answer that I just gave. And some people that don't understand this very well, they may begin to question their answer and try and change it a little bit, in which case he'll point out the change. I was sure of my answer, so I gave the same one. So he can record me giving correct answers all he wishes, because I'm recording too. Now, after he's demonstrated his serious misunderstanding of optics and hand-waved off my measurement of Earth curve, let's see where he goes now.
How did you use an auto level to deduce curvature over half a mile?
Well, the auto level sets up horizontal at one point, and then I can use it to measure that horizontal on the other side of the lake. You have certain things that you have to take into account, such as standard refraction and operator error, etc. But you can look at two objects that are exactly the same height above lake level. On a flat surface, they would be in the crosshairs of the auto level. On a curved surface, like the Earth, the far side would be lower than the near side.
Oh, dang, that would have been funny. Yeah, no, you're not. First of all, we can't really have the conversation because you don't understand Euclidean geometry and hyperbolic geometry. I can tell based on your answer of point perspective.
Run,
Saying that
Caleb.
it's Euclidean.
That's the smartest thing you can do right now. You're kind of outclassed right now.
Yes, Caleb is very much outclassed. And it's glorious to watch him try to think of smart things to say and look like he knows what he is talking about for his audience's sake.
I'm definitely not outclassed by you. You got any better arguments that you can actually like understand?
Oh, I understand them all. What argument do you have
what's
for
your next best argument that the Earth's a ball? Please, next best.
Oh, how many different ways would you like me to measure the curve and size of the
Bob, if
the Earth?
you've been auto level and you saw this from a 1 foot observer height, would you still assume that the Earth's a ball?
Yeah. You know why?
Wow.
Where's the horizon there?
Bob,
I know QE is your fourth daddy, but go ahead and tell me where the horizon is, because that's from QE.
I know McToon's your globe daddy.
No,
Dude, I've watched your videos. They're like so unbearable.
Man. Well, I know you are, but what am I?
A garbage man.
Oh, I know you are, but what am I?
A garbage man.
I know you are, but what am I?
A garbage man.
Takes one to know one.
Checkmate.
All right.
So how do you measure curvature?
Let's look at these two oil rigs.
Hold on, Bob. Chill. Stop screaming. Dude, you will get kicked.
Who's
The next
screaming?
time you just scream, you're gonna get kicked. Okay?
Kick me now.
Or we can have this good conversation where
No,
we can
kick me now
demonstrate
if you
how
wanna kick me.
illogical you are and unsmart you are. So,
All right.
Bob, this was from a 1 foot observer height, where we're observing a platform at 9.41 miles, necessitating that the Earth's curvature in the form of radius be over 200,000 miles. Did you know that?
How'd you do that math?
From a 1 foot observer height, should we see
Sure, do the math for me.
9.41 miles, Bob?
Do the math for me. Tell me how the radius comes out to 240,000 miles.
I'm not doing math with you right now, Bob.
Of course. Well, the horizon there, first of all, is between the shore and the oil rigs. Second of all, you can clearly see
The shoreline is where? Where exactly?
Okay, so when my measurement of Earth curve totally destroyed his argument, he immediately just hand waved it off and moved on to his next one. Well, what's another way you can measure Earth curve? And I said there's 5 or 6 different ways that I could easily do. But now he wants to talk about QE's black swan. Now, what he doesn't realize is that I have thoroughly analyzed this image, and I actually have a couple of hours worth of video on it. I know this image far better than he does. Now, obviously, I've heard this claim that the black swan means that the Earth's radius has to be at least 240,000 miles. Well, a couple of problems that you run into with that. First of all, how on earth did they ever come up with that? Because I don't think any of them can do the math to do it. And second of all, if the radius of the Earth is 240,000 miles, it's still a radius. The Earth is still a sphere. It doesn't mean it's flat.
The shoreline is where? Where exactly?
Where the photographer is. Now, he's used this technique many times before. You see how I started to say something, then he immediately cut me off and tried to change the subject to something else, some sort of a gotcha he was looking for? What I was pointing out is if you look at that oil rig carefully, the one on the right, you'll see underneath it in the leg area, there is a catwalk. That's called the boat deck. That catwalk is some 15 to 20 feet above the water. Now look at the oil rig on the left. Where's that catwalk? It's hidden by the curve of the Earth, even though that is a badly refracted image, and you're seeing a false horizon behind it.
The shoreline's where the photographer is? Where's the horizon?
About 2.4 miles out.
But we're seeing 9 miles.
You're seeing horizon, and then you're seeing objects that are beyond the horizon. You're seeing the tops of them.
What? How? How are we seeing this far? How are we seeing this far, Bob?
The same. Jeez, you think you can't see 9 miles?
On the same level. How far should we see from a 6 foot observer height on a ball?
About 3 miles. That's where the horizon will be. However,
hold on. We're seeing 1 foot, 9 miles.
Yeah,
See the bottom
those
here?
you see the helicopter pads there? They're over 90 feet above the water. Why wouldn't
You
you
think
see
these
them?
are helicopter pads, Bob? Oh my
Yes.
gosh.
Yeah,
These are oil rigs, dude.
You just don't get it, do you? You don't.
Now, characteristic number 4 of science denial is poor scientific reasoning and logic. Now, here's a good example of it. He seems to think that once you're at the horizon, everything that's further than that is somehow invisible. He's not taking into account that if you have a tall object beyond the horizon, you'll see the top of that object, you just won't see the bottom of it because it's past the horizon. This is a concept that seems rather foreign to him, which absolutely amazes me because I think most of us figured this out by about the time we were 5. So his entire argument is that because it's beyond the horizon, we shouldn't see it. Now, when I bring this up to him, notice how quickly he tries to turn it back on me. You
These
see the
are oil
helipads on the
rigs.
oil rigs.
You think they're helicopter pads? Oh my gosh. How long have you been in this debate?
5 years, and they're helipads because they're actually FAA designated helipads. That's
These
how
are
they get.
oil rigs, Bob.
This has got to be the most mind-numbing argument that he's made so far. He does not comprehend the idea that, yes, indeed, they're oil rigs. And on top of the oil rigs, there are helipads. Those helipads have FAA designations. Now, they're there for medical evacuation, emergency resupply, things like that. Now, yes, this structure is an oil rig, and it has a helipad on top of it. So when I refer to the helipad, obviously I'm referring to the helipad portion of the oil rig. Why he thinks this is a point is absolutely mind-boggling to me.
We all know flat earthers take literally everything literally. There are no gray areas with them. It's all black and white.
Fix
Can
the
an oil
terminology.
rig have a helipad on it, Caleb?
Possibly, but we don't
Okay,
address them
these
as
do.
helipads. They're called oil rigs.
These do have helipads on them, and they are 90 feet above the water. Why wouldn't you see those from 8 miles?
Because we're only supposed to be seeing 3 miles
That's-
from a 6-foot observer height.
That's to the horizon. That's
Is
0
horizon-
feet at the horizon. We can
Bob.
see the 3 miles.
Chill, Bob, chill. Is the horizon apparent or geometric, Bob?
Both. There are both types of horizons. However, we see the apparent horizon.
Yeah, so we never see the geometric horizon.
So after I just crushed his stupidity by claiming that they're oil rigs, not helipads, even though they have helipads on them, and that's what I'm referring to, now he's trying to change the subject to get out of this hole that he's just dug himself into.
And so how can you say that it's both?
Well, there is a geometric horizon, and then there's a
How do we
apparent
know?
horizon, which is
No,
always
don't
longer
just
than the
repeat your script.
geometric.
Don't just repeat the script. How do we know there's a geometric horizon if we never see it? How do we know, Bob? Help me.
Mathematically. That's what a
Mathematically.
geometric
Does
horizon
mathematics
is.
describe or explain, Bob?
Describe.
Okay, there we go. So it doesn't explain where the geometric horizon is at all. It only describes. We have to use
Okay.
science. So
So
how do
it
we use
describes
science
the
if we
geometric
don't?
horizon.
Bob,
That's
I'm
what
in the
you
middle of a
asked me.
sentence.
Now, you may recall from the first episode, Caleb tried to use the word deduce and measure interchangeably. Now he's talking about describe versus explain. The mathematics describe the location of the geometric horizon. There's no explanation needed. It's simply a geometric fact.
Okay, there we go. So it doesn't explain where the geometric horizon is at all. It only describes. We have to use
Okay.
science. So
So
how do
it
we use
describes
science
the
if we
geometric
don't?
horizon.
Bob, I
That's
was in
what
the
you
middle of a
asked me.
sentence. Dude, Bob, I was in the middle of talking. How do we use science to prove there's a geometric curvature, Bob?
We describe it mathematically.
That didn't answer the question. How do we use science to prove there is a geometric curvature, Bob?
Science doesn't prove. However, math does prove, except in the flat earth land of nuh-uh.
Don't use math.
Well, how do you not use math in science?
You can do apparatuses and experiments.
How would you measure to something that you cannot see because of refraction in the atmosphere?
Oh, that's your problem, not mine. I'm not saying
not
there's
my
a
problem at
geometric
all.
curvature. So that's actually your burden of proof. So do you want to try?
Well, you just measure the diameter of the sphere, and that tells you where.
How do you measure the diameter of the
Oh,
sphere of
there's
the Earth?
5, 6
Do that
different
one.
ways.
Do it. Do one. Don't just say there's 5 or 6. Do one,
Okay.
Bob.
Well,
Do
let's
it.
just kind of go down a couple of them. Let's look at optical measurements. How about
No, do one.
Eratosthenes and Al-Biruni?
Do one.
All right, let's do another measurement, and that is use the odometer on your car to measure the distance between 2 points on the Earth. You will find that matches a great circle point, and you can calculate, or a great circle distance.
Whoa. Stop. Did you
Go
just say
ahead and record
drive
it, kid.
from one point to another point
Yes.
and read your odometer?
Yep. Now, this is a little sophisticated for Kaleb, but let me go ahead and tell the rest of you how this is done. On a flat plane, such as a flat Earth, if you took 2 locations on that, say New York and Los Angeles, and you created a triangle between New York, Los Angeles, and the North Pole, you would have a solvable triangle. You know the distance from each city to the North Pole, that's 60 nautical miles per degree, and you know the angle at the North Pole because that is the difference in longitude between the 2 cities. Using the law of cosines, you can then solve for that third leg of the triangle, which is the distance between Los Angeles and New York. Now you can compare that to the great circle distance on a sphere. Now on a flat Earth, you would be able to predict that distance, and you could measure that with your car odometer. If you did not get that, you could take that odometer reading, and you could actually use it to calculate the radius of the sphere that great circle distance covered.
How does that tell us that the Earth's surface is curved, Bob?
Well, it matches a great circle, and you use the Haversine formula to
How do you know
calculate
it
the
matches a
radius
great
of that
circle?
circle.
I wonder if Kaleb knows that an odometer keeps track of how many miles a car has traveled. I am sure he does, but he is playing stupid quite well. And to notice how he is frustrated because he can't get Bob to say what he wants him to say. Ah, so glorious to watch.
How do you know it matches a great circle?
Because
know
it's not a planar distance based on
What do you mean
triangles.
a planar distance?
Do you know what a
Okay,
triangle
so
is?
if I drive from Nevada, from one side of Nevada to Utah, how do you
Okay.
decipher whether it's planar or spherical or a great circle? How do we decipher those?
Okay, well, you take the coordinate that you started in Nevada, and you take the coordinate that you finished in Utah. You take your odometer reading, you apply the Haversine formula, and you calculate the radius
The
from that.
Haversine formula.
The Haversine formula.
So wait, hold on. Does the Haversine formula have the radius or circumference baked into it?
The Haversine formula includes distance, latitude and longitude,
Google it
and
for you. We
radius.
obviously don't know
And
it. I'll
depending on what you put into it, you can solve for the remaining term.
spell Haversine.
Now, this demonstrates Kaleb's basic misunderstanding of mathematics. Now, most people that have made it through the 8th grade had a little introduction to algebra. So, for example, with the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. If you have the 2 sides, you can solve for the hypotenuse. If you have the hypotenuse in one side, you can solve for the other side. It just has to do with what variable you're trying to solve for. As long as you have all the other variables, you can solve for that variable. So in the case of the Haversine formula, the way that it is traditionally used is you take your starting coordinates, your ending coordinates, and then you use the Haversine formula to calculate the distance between the 2 points. And that Haversine formula does include the radius of the Earth. However, what if you have the 2 points and you have the actual distance between them? You can use the Haversine formula, just rearrange it a little bit, and solve for the radius. That's what I'm referring to here. He simply can't comprehend the mathematics behind that substitution where you're solving for a different variable. Now, the other thing that I wanted to point out too is he doesn't know what the Haversine formula is. He had to ask me how to spell it, and then he's looking it up, trying desperately to figure out what I'm even talking about. However, as soon as he does look it up, he not only misstates the Haversine formula, he's suddenly an expert on it and knows more about it than I do.
Of course he thinks he knows more than you, Bob, because he's a flat earther. They think they know more than any indoctrinated person who has spent their lives learning, studying, and working on something for years and years.
Listen, what I'm
AV Haversine, Haversine.
Formula. Okay, let's see.
So normally the way you would use the Haversine is you'd put the radius of the Earth in and the coordinates, and it would tell you the distance between the 2 points. However, if you have the distance between the 2 points and the coordinates, you can use it to calculate the radius.
Dude, the formulation of the Haversine, dude, it has the radius baked into it, Bob. You're just assuming the Earth has a specific radius without proving. How do we prove the radius of the Earth?
So Caleb, see if you can follow this.
Bob, stop. You will get kicked and you'll stop making money.
See,
this quick.
I'm not making money now, so I don't really care.
Bob, stop. Bob.
Let's see if you can do basic.
You're gone. You're gone. I don't care. I'm going to scream over you. I don't care. Let's try to find a more normal guess.
Butt hurt alert. Butt hurt alert. Butt hurt alert.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you take down a flat earther. Notice that he got so frustrated at the end because I was making him look really stupid.
You didn't make him look stupid, Bob. He made himself look stupid.
That he ended up kicking me off the show. Now, a couple of things you should note, Caleb, because I'm talking to you now. While you were talking to me, you had 1,300 viewers. As soon as I left, you dropped down to 600. I gained quite a few new followers, and I got a lot of messages from the people in your audience. Now, here's something that you need to understand. The vast majority of people in your audience are there to watch you make a fool of yourself. And I just helped you out with that. So just remember, Caleb, people are not laughing with you. They're laughing at you. Have a good night, everyone. This is Bob the Science Guy. Thank you very much for tuning into this short little series. I had a lot of fun making it. And my 15 minutes with Caleb was, as you can see, quite productive. Take care, guys.
Oh my, that was fun. It's always hilarious when a flat earther gets some FE, free education, but doesn't take advantage of it because of their own arrogance. Remember to do all the YouTube-y stuff like, share, comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell and click all to get notified when I upload new content. Thank you for watching. You are all awesome. See you in the next video.